All right, I think we're on. Hi, Lauren.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Great. For those viewing at home or wherever you are, this is Lauren Austin, who's the creative director over at MKG in New York, an experiential and event marketing agency. They're also in Los Angeles and Chicago, and obviously, I think you guys do work around the globe, do you not?
We do. We
Yeah.
do most of our work in the States, but we do work internationally.
Awesome, awesome. So, creative director for an experiential marketing agency. I
Yes.
love it. It just sounds like one of the most creative roles of all time. What do you do?
Um, let's see. Am, I'll give you the pitch that I tell my grandmother,
Great.
which is like the simplified version, which is that I am a Robin Hood. I figure out ways to get big brands to spend their money doing cool stuff.
Awesome.
Um, in the reality of my day to day is I work a lot on new business, work on the RFPs and briefs that come in. My team handles most of that. And then I oversee a team of people who kind of keep creative tabs on all of our active work as well, just to make sure that after we win something, it stays as cool and interesting and relevant as possible throughout the course of its lifespan.
Awesome. Well, we've got you on here today because this is the Future of Event Marketing series that Event Farm's putting on. We're doing 12 interviews with 12 thought leaders and industry leaders in our eyes of folks that are thinking about, event marketing and experiential marketing, and they're always thinking about the future. And so, it's a little bit of a snapshot of today, kind of because I think this group of 12 people already think futuristically. But we also do want to spend some time today talking about what we think is going to come ahead of us and what's going to happen in the next coming years. So I got a list of 7 or 8 questions here that we'll run through, and we can go off script if we need to and have some fun. But thank you for taking the time. And let me just jump in. I'll start. I'm going to kind of go a little bit backwards on you here, but I want to start with just like a really fundamental question that I think people should be interested in. Is like, why do brands, companies even have events to begin with? Like, why events, right? What is that? How does that factor into the greater business objectives or marketing strategies? Like, why events?
Sure. I think it's pretty simple. I wish it was simpler for brands and decision makers, but I think it's speaking for myself. I don't make choices. I don't choose brands and I don't choose products based on just quality and price and availability or accessibility. I choose the products that I buy based oftentimes on the brand itself. And with so many brands and so much clutter and competition going on, there's so many brands for me to choose from. So for me, brands that are actually creating experiences, whether it's an event or a really cool piece of technology or a really cool digital interaction, something that I can actually experience the brand and understand who they are, what they are, that gives that brand a little bit of an edge for me. Oftentimes it makes it feel like they're choosing me, which makes me more likely to choose them. And then I think ultimately, our position and our point of view is that events and experiences give a brand an opportunity to actually interact with people in a way that a person would. So with humor, with wit, with intelligence, with empathy, with humanity, ultimately. And I think that people choose brands the way they choose friends or the people they want to date. You don't want to go on a date with somebody who is boring and expected and just like everybody else. And you don't want to choose a clothing brand or a soap brand or a toothbrush brand that feels totally generic and, that just doesn't feel interesting or relevant to who you are and what you stand for. So I think events and experiences allow brands to touch people and really show their humanity in a way that traditional marketing sometimes can't.
Yeah, and what I love about, I've heard from you, I've heard from MKG, and you specifically learn a lot just out in the world when you guys talk about experiences and events. I think what I'm so inspired by what you guys do is you really try to pull I've heard you guys say this. You don't just put on an event. Like you try to how do we experientially represent this brand? Right? That's different than just putting on an event that says, here's our product. It's got a nice light on it. You know, here are the buttons or features, or here's what it looks like. Here's how it fits. You guys are trying to evoke, again, what you just said was that human component, you know, that emotional connection to the brand. Like, how do you, it must be really hard, right? Like if I said, I just think about it all the time. Okay, I got a glass of water here, you know, give me the experiential way to represent this glass of water. That's a crazy challenge. Like, how can I have an emotional connection with this glass? But you guys, I think, do an incredible job of being creative on doing that. Like, how do you do that? How do you approach it?
Well, the glass of water challenge sounds hard, so I'll pass on that one. But I think, you know, oftentimes we're in the fortunate position of marketing to ourselves. The agency is young and filled with millennial consumers, and that's who a lot of our brands and clients are going after. So it's a little bit easy for us to really put ourselves in the shoes of who we're talking to, because it is us. It's looking in the mirror. I go to a lot of events, and I know that a lot of my colleagues and my friends and my family do as well. And the ones that are memorable are the ones that work. Hopefully not memorable for the wrong reasons, but memorable because they made you laugh, because there was a really funny piece of copy or a sign, you know, a quick graphic that was really great, or it had amazing design. I felt like really inspired visually by something, or it really taught me something about that brand that I didn't know and that was surprising or interesting or, you know, memorable in some way. So we try to do things that would appeal to us, that would be memorable and really impactful for us. And then I think also brands are fortunately more and more willing to be weird and be wacky and, you know, have real personality and be interesting. I think 10 years ago, you went into every single event and party and gifting suite and experience, and it was kind of the same. It was like white furniture and maybe a branded pillow in the color of the logo of the brand, and you know, a bar, and it was just so boring. And that's hospitality. That's not experiential. And I think there's been a really huge evolution over the last 5 years or so, where people are understanding that experiential is more than just hospitality.
Yeah, that's a great point. You just mentioned your team, and I've seen you quoted before. I think maybe in CNN or something like that, or on CNN. You talk about the importance of a creative workspace. As a creative director, I'm assuming this is a passion of yours. But you know, how has that influenced your MKG and just, you know, your experience working with a bunch of creative millennials, which probably to a lot of people sounds like a nightmare, but I'm sure it's a lot of fun.
Well, we were very lucky because we moved into this space, and Manish really made the process of creating this office very collaborative. There were lots of polls and wish lists and, like, you know, moonshot thinking for the office. So some of it didn't come true, but a lot of it did. But I think especially for my team, we're all on laptops. We travel around the office a lot. We have a lot of different kinds of workspaces within the office. So you can work on a couch, you can work at a table, you can work at a desk, you can work on the floor, you can, you know, kind of go work outside of the office if you need to. I think I'm infamous for lying on the floor during brainstorms, which is partially like my ADD, and I need to be away, like not looking at my computer and not looking at other people so that I can really think. But I think it's just important that people feel comfortable and, you know, to create a workspace that's creative, but also ultimately a workspace that you want to be in, because we do spend a lot of time with each other too.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, gonna fire off some more business ones here. How technology, and this is abroad, we can dive down
Ryan,
deeper.
you're becoming a little robotic for me.
Oh, I don't want to be robotic. Is that any better?
Yes, visually you're still a little bit robotic, but the sound sounded better for a second.
All right, well, maybe we'll have to sacrifice some video and keep going with the audio. Right. It's okay. So how has technology influenced your clients, or just brands in general, brands' expectations on just new activation ideas and new experiential, concepts. Like you gave the example of like the pillow is not going to work anymore. So I'm assuming technology is a part of that. But are there any threads or themes or just like tech? Like how did tech change the seller? What are the things that you are most inspired by or people are most interested in when trying to change up that to make the new experiential marketing real and come to life?
Yeah, technology has been insane, an insane part of the evolution of experiential marketing. In the most positive way, technology has put our discipline on the map in a way that it wasn't when I first started in this business. Both in terms of putting it in front of people, consumers, but also putting it in front of decision makers, clients. I remember when I first started doing events, you were like really just doing it for the people that were there physically. And you were lucky if somebody wrote a little blurb about it or maybe put like a kind of crappy still photo of it. Now, technology makes an experience, a video the next day on Adweek, and it's all over social media. You have things like Periscope where people can actually like virtually join an event or watch an event. So the technology has really pushed creativity and pushed fresh thinking, because it's forced people to really think bigger and have higher expectations and higher standards for the work that we do, which is amazing. On the flip side, I think that technology. I think some clients and some brands prioritize technology over strategic thinking. I think that sometimes they mistake technology for creativity. And that's always a bummer. It's always a bummer to get a brief that's like led by a type of technology as opposed to a strategy or a creative idea. And I think that was a trend that we definitely have seen in the last, 4 or 5 years. But hopefully, I think that's kind of that's going to be a little bit on its way out, that people realize that technology for technology's sake is no longer going to get the same kind of press that it did when, I guess like 2 or 3 years ago. But then there's some amazing technologies that are allowing you to do really, really cool things. Obviously VR is insane and only going to continue to get bigger in our business. I think we're like just scraping the surface of what you're going to be able to do with VR at live events. And I think VR is going to allow people all over the world to join events and make, what used to be a regional or local thing, a completely global community experience. So I think it's really exciting. We are huge proponents of using technology strategically and helping or using technology to build on creative ideas and make ideas blossom in a way. We have a creative technologist on staff that and he's a huge part of our creative ideation, and a big part of how we think is how can we leverage technology to make this even better, not what cool new technology can we think of or like usurp to pitch to a client. That's not how we go about it generally.
Yeah, I mean, we always say, and the same thing you're saying, we say over here, let the human behavior dictate the technology, not the technology drive the human behavior.
Yeah.
So it's back to the premise that we talked about, why events in the first place, because they're human, right? We're human beings. If we know a robot's talking to us and it's it's not authentic, we know it, we can feel it. So yeah, I think that's an important point. Okay, what do you think has been your most forward-thinking event that you've worked on, or MKG has been a part of, most forward-thinking?
The work that we've done with TED and for Delta at TED has been really forward-thinking. I think we worked with them at TED and their sponsorship of TED for about 4 years, I think. But the last 2 years, we were able to work on projects with them that really pushed forward, I think, what Delta felt comfortable with and what Delta's idea of what experiential and sponsorship activation could be. We did a project in 2014 TED called Social Soul. Basically, the the brief from Delta to us was to talk about the a project that they have called Innovation Class, which in a nutshell is they pair a major entrepreneur or superstar in their category or industry with somebody who's up and coming and who wants to be mentored by that person. They pair them in a business class seat sitting next to each other on a transcontinental flight. And they get this 6-hour free incredible mentorship from this industry leader. So it's an incredible program that they developed with Wyden that nobody really knew about or wasn't getting enough press coverage. So at TED, our job was to activate the sponsorship by talking about that. And the easy thing to do would have been to plop 2 business class seats next to each other, have some great graphic design and signage that talks about the program. But we wanted what we did there to be just as awesome and just as interesting as what they're doing in the sky. So what we did instead was work with some visual and creative artists who helped us create an installation called Social Soul. And basically what it did was leveraged everybody at the TED conference through their Twitter handles, and people would come to the experience and go into the installation, which was like a solo experience. Once you were inside, you entered your Twitter handle and you were immersed in your own Twitter verse. So like all of your posts, all of the people you follow, and it was just this crazy mirrored room of your digital Twitter life. Then we created a custom algorithm that kind of looked through everybody else at TED, their Twitter universe, and it paired you with what we called your social soulmate. And then you were kind of immersed in their Twitter feed and their Twitter universe. And then when you came out, you got a direct message, or both of you got a direct message saying, your social soulmate is Ryan Costello, here's his Twitter handle. You should actually meet up with him in real person because you guys have a lot in common, basically was the messaging. So again, it takes that idea of connecting people in flight, but we did it in a little bit more of an abstract way and connected people at the TED conference. So, you know, we were able to tell the story and get a lot of press off of it for Innovation Class, but we actually created an experience that was unique to TED and you know, give TED attendees something really interesting to do as opposed to just like us preaching to them about something we're doing elsewhere.
Yeah, that's really cool. Who was your soulmate? Do you remember?
I actually wasn't there, but I've done it. We have a setup in our office, and I think that there's one MKGer that's everybody's soulmate because he, for some reason, he has like the most dominating parasitic Twitter existence. So almost everyone gets him.
Or he coded it, so it's a big trick on you.
Yes, that's possible. I'm actually going to look into that now.
All right, cool. Just a couple more. We don't want to run too long. And I'll challenge us to be even quicker on this one. We'll try to see if we can get our answer maybe down to, I don't want to give you the 10-word challenge, but you get the idea.
Okay, loud and clear.
Loud and clear. So what are the biggest changes you see taking place in event marketing over the next few years? So it's the future, right? So we kind of talked a little bit about today. You mentioned virtual reality a little bit, but like, if we're going to look in 2018, 19, what's going to be, how's that going to look? What's going to be the future?
Sure. I think content and events, you know, no longer just content from events, but we're seeing so much events that are created for the purpose of content. I think that's going to continue to grow and change the industry. And then I think you're going to see a lot more experientially driven campaigns, things that aren't necessarily an experience that builds off a print or a TV idea, but rather experiential that exists on its own and is its own thing outside of what a brand is doing necessarily in other channels.
Gotcha. And then similar in that vein, data. We hear data. We hear big data, little data, all kinds of the words of definitions of data. Okay, so what, how is data changing the way marketers view events? And we can take this in any number of ways. We can take this from a big data conversation, from a, hey, what data can the marketers get out of events? Just what in your world are you hearing on the data side?
Sure.
From a request or whatever.
I think on the big data and real-time data, experiential, like the entire industry, advertising and marketing industry, is being affected by that because we're just able to know so much more about people and purchasing habits and all of that. So all of our decisions and creative is so much more informed and so much more insightful because of data. In terms of data from events and data when it relates to like metrics and ROI and clients looking at experiential for that to me is tricky. I think that as experiential has grown in its importance in the marketing plan, and more executives and client decision makers are putting more emphasis on experiential, it's been like a natural progression that they've also demanded the same kind of ROI expectations, or they have the same expectations. But I think it's a slippery slope and something that's really tricky, because going back to the first question, experiential is qualitative, it's not quantitative. And the effect that you can have on somebody's opinion of a brand at a concert or at a live event or at a experience of any kind is so different than if they tweeted it or if they signed up and gave you their email address. So I think it's dangerous to look at straight quantitative numbers at something that's so richly qualitative.
Yeah, that's a great point. Don't forget the human element, again, exactly. All right, last easy one. That crazy wallpaper you have in your office, is that Dukes of Hazzard? What is that going on over there?
Yeah, it's Demolition Derby 12.
Obviously. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why I asked. Stupid question. Well, that's all I had, Lauren. Awesome. Thank you so much again. Thank you for your time, but thank you and MKG for being thought leaders in our industry. We respect the hell out of the work you guys do, and you're always pushing the envelope, and I think the market knows that. So thanks for the time, and we'll be sure to share this out once we get it out next week, so you can share it with the world.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Bye.
Bye.